Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee of Portsmouth City Council, meeting in the Guildhall. Just to take people through the normal bits in terms of what's going on. So I'm Gerald Van Jackson. I'm chair of the committee, and welcome to everybody. There's a live stream available. If there's a fire alarm that goes, please treat it as real. No, there's nothing expected as a practice. And can we meet outside the Park building, which on King Henry the Street. And if you signed in, please sign out. There is a live stream, and that means that people who come to speak here doing deputations will be live streamed so that the public can see. Just for clarification, there is an order that we do each planning application in. First of all, the officers will present their report. Then there are deputations. There's 12 minutes in favour and 12 minutes against. And on the sheet today, we've got how many minutes are allowed per person to make sure that that is okay. And then there are questions from members of the committee, and then discussion about a way forward, and at that point, then only members of the committee are involved in the discussion, and then a decision is made. And colleagues, when we're voting, can you make sure you put your hands up in an obvious fashion? Okay, shall we start by just going round and introducing everybody so that everybody knows who they are and what their role is today. Councillor Atwell, do you want to start?
Love to. Good morning. Chair Chris Atwell, St Thomas Ward.
Good morning. Mary Vallely, Cusham and Wimmering.
Judith Smythe, Vice Chair of this committee, St Jude Ward.
Richard?
Richard Dale, Councillor.
Beg your pardon, my apologies. Ray?
Raymond Dent, Councillor for Copner Ward. Richard Adair, Councillor for Nelson Ward.
Peter Candlish, Eastern and Craneswater.
Dave Ashmore, Fratton Ward, and I'm subbing for Hugh Mason today.
Excellent. Okay, so we're joined by Juliet.
Good morning, I'm Juliet Gill. I'm the Principal Planning Solicitor at Portsmouth City Council.
Ian?
Ian Maguire, Assistant Director for Planning and Economic Growth.
Good morning, Simon Turner, one of the planning team leaders.
Jane Dodino, Local Democracy Officer.
And then people who are coming to speak to the committee. Matthew?
Matthew Willington, Eastern and Craneswater Ward Councillor and Cabinet Member for Community Wellbeing, Health and Care.
Lovely, thank you. Oliver?
Oliver Farr, Applecore, and I'm doing deputation for 8 St Chad's and 74 Margate Road.
Okay, thank you. David?
David Morgan, I'm the City Council's Strategic Development Manager for Sports and Leisure.
Rachel Fowler, consultant from Strategic Leisure, been working with David.
Okay.
I am Dr. Rajesh Bhateja. I'm GP at the Lighthouse Group Practice, Portsmouth.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Councillor Lee Hunt. I'm Cabinet Member for Sports and Open Spaces and Community Safety. I'm also the Ward Councillor for Nelson Ward, and I'm thrilled and delighted to be here today to speak about Bransbury Park application.
Thank you. Martin?
And Martin Stillman, Milton Neighbourhood Forum.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, colleagues, let's just quickly go through the agenda then. We have apologies from Councillor Hugh Mason with Councillor Dave Ashmore subbing. Matthew Cordy is not well and Ray Dent is subbing for him. Derek North, son's nativity play, I think, or something like that, therefore he can't be here. We don't have a sub, but we might have George Madgwick later, but we'll just see. And we've got Councillor Shah is also not here, but without a sub. Is that correct? Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, any interests that need to be declared? Nope. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, the minutes of the previous meeting on the 4th of December. Colleagues, are you happy with those minutes? Okay, let me sign. Okay, that's that done. Hello, we've been joined by somebody else. Hello, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Sorry, yes. I'm Andrew Clark. I'm the business partner for the Lighthouse Group practice.
Lovely. Many thank you, Andrew. You're not on our list to speak. Are you wanting to? You could sing. It's Christmas.
No, thank you. It's very kind of you, though.
That's all right. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. So the first application is the Eastney Community Centre, Bransbury Park. Ian.
Thank you. Bransbury Park Leisure Centre, the Eastney Community Centre land is the construction of a single part two-storey building providing a new leisure centre and
sorry,
GP surgery.
Sorry to stop you. Do we need to have time for colleagues who have read things in the supplementary matters papers?
I don't know whether you wanted to do that before or after the presentation.
Let's do the presentation first, and then we might have a couple of minutes break to make sure that, because there's quite a lot of stuff in the supplementary matters stuff today. Okay, sorry, Ian, to break in.
So Bransbury Park, as you can see on the aerial photograph and plan on screen, is a local green space as defined by the Milton Neighbourhood Plan, an area of playing pitches, hard multi-use games areas, as well as the existing community gardens, community centre, playground and a miniature railway. Part of the site is in a zone for flood risk, which is why the building has been designed with a podium to rise the building up. And as noted, it is existing open space with a number of trees and green spaces making it up. Photographs, members will know the site well. This is the proposal. Busy plan, apologies for that. The new building is down here in the bottom left corner of your image, which is the area currently occupied by hard courts. The area to the north of that, also hard courts, will be redesigned with a five-a-side AstroTurf pitch and a basketball, hard surface court, and two little buildings. That's a new changing pavilion for outdoor sport and a little building with bin stalls in, etc. The new building here is on this end, and we'll come to some floor plans, the swimming pool, changing and circulation, and then gym and GP on this far western end. The miniature railway is unmoved, as you'd expect, and the playground is relocated over to the far side of the site. This shows some indicative opportunities for layouts for 4 football pitches following consultation with Sport England. This is the location of the existing changing pavilion, which is to be demolished, and this is the existing car park, which is to be extended in this far corner. As you can see, a number of trees to be removed, 66 trees to go in replacement. That is a description, it's taken from the papers and updated in the SMAT, of the scheme. So it is a main and learner pool, a fitness suite and spin studio, a gym for most people, wet and dry change facilities, and then a 5 consultation room, 3 treatment room, GP surgery, and then as listed a series of replacement and altered outdoor provision, as well as off-site provision, which we will come to in a moment. That is the ground floor layout, as I say, lane swimming and learner pool. The back office stuff, pools need a lot of that, wet, dry, change, circulation space, the ground floor fitness studio, and the ground floor and entrance into the GP surgery. This is the main entrance point into the building, here and here. First floor is the multi-purpose studios and spin studios for the gym and the remaining part of the GP's surgery, and then plant on the roof with the usual collection of opportunities for PV and other things are there to achieve a BREEAM excellent rating. That is the building, the 2-storey element there, single storey which will be brick fronted there, and then the vaulted element over the swimming pool area on the far side. There are the other elevations. It's a relatively straightforward building on that basis. Some axiometrics, which will probably mean very little to people, but that's the building in its context. There you go. And then some images, which may be slightly more helpful, as you can see there. This is the Brandsbury Road southern elevation, that brick central area, two-storey bit rising up there, the single-storey bit, the vaulted bit rising up there. And that gives you probably a better view. This is looking from the edge, that's the miniature railway fence. For those that know the site, there will be a new route through here. That's for refuse collection and servicing mostly. I'm not sure it is to be black tarmac, but that's a new route through there and fully permeable for people walking along the edge of Brandsbury Park. And then that's the swimming area, brick, and then the two-storey GP and gym. And there's your main entrance with the brick coming in there and the building. Some long-distance views, which will probably mean nothing in this scale, so we'll skip through those. And then landscape master planning, as you can say, a series of new and replacement trees and retained planting around the edges to ensure that the quality trees can be retained wherever possible. As I say, it's only 4 trees removed, and across the whole park, 66 trees going back in. And then as you come out, there's the other edge up there, and there's the children's play area. And then on the far corner, that enlarged parking area where the existing car park exists. Primary planning consideration is the loss of open space. This is defined as local green space, which is the most protected form of open space in Portsmouth in the Milton Neighbourhood Plan, which forms part of your development plan. So there is a few thousand square metres, as you can see, loss of open space, and thus can only be granted if very special circumstances exist. The scheme, as you'd expect, does include some minor highway works, on-street parking, disabled bays, moving around some bus stop works, and the alteration, as mentioned, to the car park. Very special circumstances, then the primary very special circumstance that officers have satisfied do justify this scheme is the fact it is a replacement facility for Eastney Swimming Pool. Eastney Swimming Pool, as members will be well aware, has been closed for a while. Has been confirmed that there is no intention to reopen that site. So a replacement facility, or the need for one, was considered by the applicant, the Council's Leisure Services. In that consideration, they looked at the position of all other swimming pools in the city, and they are all of those dots and a few others in there, and put a reasonable estimate of a catchment for those swimming pools, 1 mile, which is those pink circles. And say, while we have a little bit of unserved space in the north of the city, the obviously area that Eastney has left us with is that large yellow area wherein you are more than a mile away from a nearest swimming facility. I'd say that is all swimming facilities, private clubs, expensive, as well as municipal and community swimming. So clearly a gap in the swimming provision in the area. While we are relatively well off for swimming in the city on a pure meterage of water, and obviously that, without talking about open swimming in the Solent as well, we do obviously have a mixture of private clubs and more cost-effective pay-and-play swimming. So there's a notable need for that pay-and-play end of the demography of swimming, and that yellow area gave the Leisure Services team their search area for a replacement facility. They looked at a number of sites. That's all the sites. This is all detailed in the application in far more detail, of course, of where you could possibly put a new facility that would be within that yellow area and would do the sensible job. So would create a new and cost-effective public amenity, would be accessible, would have opportunities for linked trips in a sequential way with town centres, would physically fit. All of these matters were taken into account, and Brandsbury Park was identified as a sequentially preferable location for this new swimming facility. Officers have looked through that in great depth and have satisfied ourselves that that is a reasonable position. As mentioned, just briefly, so there is a planning obligation attached to the application, which deals with the highway improvements and the necessary travel plan, but also because we are building on outdoor courts to produce this new swimming pool, a series of off-site improvements have been provided to make up that shortfall. Some are closer, Milton Park, Baffin's Pond, some further away, Mountbatten Centre, to re-provide for the tennis and netball in particular, opportunities that have been lost from the site. Overall, this is a fairly classic area of planning balance. It's a planning balance that is tilted very much against the grant of building on local green space, and thus you need very special circumstances. As I say, that primary very special circumstance is the identified need for a swimming pool in this vicinity, and indeed this is the sequentially preferable site for that. Some need for a gym has also been identified, and the co-location of a swimming pool and a gym has been identified as the best way to make a financially viable leisure offer, and that's a well-established and well-known way of delivering swimming pools, which are extremely cost ineffective as leisure facilities. There's also, as mentioned, a GP surgery. There is a need to replace the Devonshire Avenue surgery, which is end of life, to put it that way. So this becomes a replacement facility for that surgery and an enhancement to it as well. And obviously by co-locating it with that leisure facility adds not only to the sustainability of the facility, but also allows for linked health and well-being benefits between that health provision and the leisure and fitness provision. There are minor advantages as well throughout the scheme. Obviously, the economic investment of creation of jobs in the area, the provision of new changing facilities. So this will give us an opportunity to provide outdoor changing that is fit for purpose for Braintree Park outdoor spaces as well, which is a noteworthy benefit, and generally qualitative improvements across the site. More trees, biodiversity enhancement of 10.63%. The SMAT corrects that, so the right amount. A larger and modernised playground and a better management of surface water and flood risk. All of those things in combination add up to clearly outweigh the harm to the local green space and any other harm, and officers are therefore satisfied that we can recommend the grant of planning permission. So the final thing to say is the SMAT is quite lengthy. It has two component parts, if you will. One, the normal SMAT, identifying just some corrections and updates from the applicant since publication of the application, and an update on the number of representations. There are a significant number of objections and a not insignificant but much smaller number of supporting letters for the scheme as well. They're all summarised in the SMAT, including some further comments from the Milton Neighbourhood Forum and the applicant are both summarised in there. But we've also provided an update for the new National Planning Policy Framework. Members are well aware of the NPPF. It was replaced on the 12th of December, so consequently and that was after we published the agenda, so everything had to be reviewed, not just changing all the paragraph numbers, which was something we had to update. There was actually some changes to the National Planning Framework itself, which immediately applies and is immediately relevant to your decision making. So wherever we have sought to apply or feel that the NPPF is relevant to decision making, we've summarised that and discussed that in the SMAT. The long and short of it is that it has made no change to the recommendation. It does provide some different ways of assessing. By way of practical example, the way you assess transport implications is slightly different, but we are satisfied that the transport assessment that has been provided is fit for purpose in both cases. Other elements may slightly different wording, slightly different way of phrasing those issues, but the bones of the judgment and the professional recommendation they result in are unaltered by this changed National Planning Policy Framework. That will be the case for the other three smaller items on the agenda as well, I am sure. So that National Planning Policy Framework summary has been provided as well. We've also had a late letter from one of the ward members, Councillor Barrett, the early hours of this morning. That has been appended as the last couple of pages to the SMAT as well. So it's had a fairly lengthy SMAT because of all of those necessary changes and last-minute submissions. So whether you do wish some time to review those before we move on to the deputations and subsequently considerations.
Thank you very much indeed, Ian. Colleagues, can we just have a couple of minutes for people to be able to read through the SMAT just to make sure that you've seen everything that you think is relevant? If you can wave when you think you've been through it, and once everybody has, we will move on. Mary, you've read them already. Excellent. Councillor Atwell, have you finished that? No, I'm just checking. But you've moved on to a different set of papers, so I'm presuming you've been through that. Is that correct? Excellent. That's 4 down, 4 to go. 5 down, 5 to go. 6 down, 2 to go. Councillor Candlish.
I apologise for being the slow reader in the group, Chair, and I'm in the last little bit of Councillor Barrett's note. Chair, if I was the last person, I'm finished.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So we now come to deputations where people come and speak. We have people speaking both in favour and against. I was going to run through them in the order that they're on the paper. Well, without Mr. Gardner. So, Mr. Silman, you are first, and you have 6 minutes, Mr. Silman.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, members. The Milton Neighbourhood Forum would like to recognise the work of officers in getting us to this point. The application is much improved since we first saw it in March. The improved access, saving 2 more mature trees, the improved look and feel of the quality of the facade, and the achievement of a BREEAM classification are all to be commended. Indeed, the BREEAM status sets a precedent for other developers in the city, and I do hope this committee encourages future developers to follow the City Council's good example on that point. Finishing off on my comments about the team, it was only yesterday they were putting in huge efforts to try and address the Neighbourhood Forum's concerns, so we do appreciate that, and thank you, David, and all of your team. We also need to stress that we're keen supporters of the leisure centre. We accept the need for it, and our members look forward to using both it and the relocated GP surgery. However, we have 2 specific objections. Sport England's position mandated the move of the children's play area from a central location to a site running adjacent to the main road. This was to keep the option of laying out 3 pitches on the western portion of the park. Given there have only been 2 pitches there since 2009, after it became obvious that the 3rd one flooded every winter, we consider it inappropriate to move the play area near a main road just in case winter flooding suddenly ceases. Our second specific objection is to the extension of the car park, taking away green space that is expressly protected in the recently adopted Milton Neighbourhood Plan. Let me give you some planning context on those objections. The Milton Neighbourhood Plan policy ENV1 enables the use of Bransbury Park for a leisure centre by virtue of a very special circumstance, exception to the local green spaces within the NPPF. The very special circumstance exception is triggered by community need for the leisure centre and GP surgery and the absence of alternative sites to that community need. We accept all of that. The Forum accepts the need for the development, but is opposed to the layout of the undeveloped green space to the east of the building. We argue that the very special circumstance does not apply, and nor do we accept the need for the play park to be relocated towards Bransbury Road and for the extension of the car park at the southeast corner. Local green spaces must be demonstrably special to the communities they serve. The Council's policy in the emerging Portsmouth Plan only allows proposals on local green spaces which are in keeping with and provide enhancement to their character and setting. Portsmouth has an undersupply of 37.2 hectares in parks and gardens, and by the end of the local plan period, this deficit will have increased to 46.98 hectares. Any loss of green and open spaces to car parking is the antithesis of the Milton Neighbourhood Plan's aspirations to reduce car dependency. COVID-19 made us much more aware of the contributions to physical and mental health and well-being of green spaces. A play park set back behind a belt of trees is more befitting of a local green space than a linear play park adjacent to the Bransbury Road frontage. This southern location has been chosen in preference to a northern one on the grounds it's visible from Bransbury Road, which might attract more interest and is more accessible. However, a road frontage location introduces greater harm to children from the effects of vehicular emissions, as children are more vulnerable to exposure than adults due to their incomplete lung development, their low breathing height, and the high physical activity and breathing rates. The UK also has a higher prevalence of childhood asthma than any other European country, and Portsmouth suffers higher concentrations of toxic pollutants such as particulate matter less than 2.5 micrometre in diameter, that's PM 2.5, than anywhere else in southeast England other than Slough. The council doesn't monitor microparticulates in Bransbury Road, but at busier periods, tailbacks of idling vehicles waiting to access Eastney Road reach back to the play park vicinity. Modelling using DEFRA's local AQ management tools replicates a standard decrease in levels, and the centre point of the existing play park is around 45 metres from the road, which is significantly distant compared to the proposed play park location. A play area to the north of the site has cleaner air, is quieter for parents and children, and is safer. Claims that the northwest corner is more liable to flood seem implausible, as it has a higher elevation than the proposed southwest location. There should be no need to move a football pitch, and a sewer easement needn't be compromised either. Onto the car park extension, we believe it's unwarranted and detracts from the visual amenity of a local green space. The council's own transport assessment identifies the current car park has the capacity to accommodate additional demand from the leisure centre. Let me repeat that. The council's own assessment confirms the car park is big enough to handle the increase in demand from the leisure centre. The leisure centre trip generation method was agreed with the local highway authority and SK Transport Planning Limited during pre-application discussions. SK modelled for weekday usage because that's when leisure centres are at their busiest. Weekend usage is spread over the whole day. However, SK was subsequently commissioned at the request of members to capture Sunday parking, specifically around football matches. Their report shows the total space available on a Sunday in the vicinity of Bransbury Road.
Martin, that's 6 minutes. Could you...
Okay, let me jump to the end. The net of it is, to summarise, there is sufficient parking already, and the extension of the car park, we believe, is unnecessary. The play area shouldn't be moved next to the road. There's no need. We believe that both of those are not outweighed by the benefits of relocation or extending. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, we now have 3 people coming to speak in support. Which order do you want to do them? David, you're going to go first, as it's your project. Okay, so, Mr. Moorman.
Thank you. My name is David Moorman. I'm the Council's Strategic Development Manager for Sports and Leisure Service. I've led on this project for the past 4 years, and I am the applicant.
You couldn't speak a bit louder, David. I'm old and deaf.
I'll get a bit closer. I'd like to thank the planning officers who've supported this application. Their advice has been crucial in making the changes we've made since we first applied, which have undoubtedly improved the application. These proposals represent the next phase of the Council's sports facility strategy and are the culmination of 8 years of research and analysis on how best to address the needs of the community, including how existing facilities are used now. This building has been specifically designed to replace Eastney Swimming Pool and the Devonshire Avenue GP surgery, which are both no longer fit for purpose. Therefore, the proposals are meeting an identified pressing local need. There is no prospect of using these 2 existing facilities to meet local needs going forward due to a combination of their age, their condition, the site constraints and the levels of work required. The Council's Leisure Service has explored a large number of alternatives for development, and we've illustrated this through the submission documents, particularly the sequential assessment and the applicant's rationale for the facility mix and location. It is well established that the co-location of health and leisure facilities brings great benefits to patients by facilitating access to the gym and pool for rehab, recovery, as well as weight loss and other therapeutic and well-being uses. The site is therefore the most appropriate location for development, and planning officers are in agreement. There will also be significant wider benefits through the provision of new courts, a new larger playground, new changing facilities. Off-site works will provide a new home for Portsmouth Netball League and will improve the existing tennis courts in the city's parks. The location immediately adjacent to the Eastney Road local shops and Eastney Community Centre will encourage trip chaining, where people can make one trip for multiple purposes to the benefit of the local centre and residents. The mix of facilities proposed in the new building is the consequence of a great deal of research and consultation and provides the maximum achievable within the constraints of the site. There are a few elements of the proposal I want particularly to highlight. Firstly, environmental sustainability. As an applicant, we've worked very hard to achieve a BREEAM rating of excellent. As you will appreciate, a swimming pool is a heavy consumer of energy, and it has been challenging to achieve this standard. The architects, GT3, have incorporated a wide range of energy-saving principles into the design. Solar panel coverage is maximised. There will be no gas used in the building, meaning renewable energy sources can be maximised via air source heat pumps. Building the new facility on the hard courts means that the impact on the park's trees and green spaces will be low. Secondly, accessibility. A key feature of the design of the building is how much more accessible it is compared to the buildings it replaces. It's been designed with access in mind. We have listened to the city's disability groups. The location of the building means that twice as many people live within walking distance than is the case at Eastney Swimming Pool. And finally, consultation. There have been 5 public consultations leading up to this application, not including the 2 planning consultations, and 6 reports to public committee meetings. We have a high level of confidence that the city's residents, particularly local residents, are in favour of this application and intend to use the new facility. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, Dr. Rajesh.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Rajesh Bhateja. I am a GP at the Lighthouse practice. Our practice runs Devonshire Avenue Surgery and Southsea Medical Centre. I am here today to strongly support this application, and I will explain why this is so important for our community. First of all, Devonshire Avenue Surgery is no longer suitable for modern primary care. The building is old, small, and cannot meet the needs of today's patients. It does not have the space or facilities to provide the treatments and services that people need. If this surgery closes and there is no replacement, it will have a very serious impact on the community. Many people, especially the elderly, those with mobility problems and families, will struggle to access care. Secondly, the NHS cannot afford to build a new surgery just by itself. We have looked for other places in the area where we could rent space and convert it into a surgery, but unfortunately, there are no suitable buildings available. The only way we can provide a new modern GP surgery for Eastney is by being part of a larger development. There are no other options for a new surgery in this area. This proposal is not just about replacing an old building. It is about creating something better, something that will bring real benefits to the community. With this new surgery, we will be able to see more patients and provide more treatments in Eastney itself. This means fewer people will have to travel to Southsea Medical Centre for care, which will make life much easier for many of our patients. Also, this development offers an exciting opportunity for innovation. By having health and leisure facilities in the same place, we can use new approaches like social prescribing. For example, if a patient with diabetes visits a GP, they can be easily referred to an exercise program in the same building. This makes it much more likely that they will follow through. Or a patient with back pain could have a joint consultation with a GP and a physiotherapist in the same location. These kinds of ideas can improve health outcomes and make care more efficient. Finally, this new facility will help us grow our primary care network teams. With a modern shared space, we can bring together GPs, nurses, pharmacists, mental health workers, community teams, and social prescribers. This is exactly the kind of teamwork the NHS wants for the future, which is providing care that is more joined up, community-based, and focused on the patient. To conclude, this proposal is essential for the people of Eastney. If we lose Devonshire Avenue surgery without a replacement, the community will suffer. By approving this application, you will ensure that we have a modern GP surgery close to home where we can offer better care and new services for our patients. Thank you for your time and support. I hope you will approve this important proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Finally, from supporters, Rachel.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. My name's Rachel Fowler. I work for Strategic Leisure Limited. We're one of 8 companies on the Sport England framework, working nationally, and I've been doing a lot of work with Portsmouth City Council since 2016. So my main roles in relation to this project have been helping to support the council in the development of the 2017 built facility strategy, subsequently updating that. I've also done a lot of work with Portsmouth University on their new facilities, and as part of the strategic planning work, recommended that the Eastney swimming pool needed to be replaced. So this proposal actually represents the final stage of implementing that 2017 strategy. I think it's really important to say how important a proposal this is for the city and how important an investment it is, both in physical activity but also health and well-being. Nationally, we're seeing a real trend towards the co-location of physical activity services and health and well-being services. But I have to say that Portsmouth City Council is one of the few authorities that is able to co-locate buildings. Quite often, local authorities don't have the buildings in the right spaces, and so whilst there can be a co-location of services, a co-location of buildings is a massive and very significant opportunity, particularly in an area where there are quite high health inequalities. And as the doctor said, the ability to signpost a patient using social prescribing or a GP referral scheme down the corridor for swimming or physical activity group sessions is a massive opportunity that shouldn't be missed. I think it's also important to say that there is a move nationally away from just sport. It is now about health and well-being and active well-being. And again, the ability to co-locate in a park environment where people are already active, you're able to bring together in this proposal not just facilities and activities in a building, but active travel leading to and from the new facilities, and the ability for co-located services to be developed. It's also considered best practice to, wherever possible, use existing council assets for the redevelopment of physical activity facilities, because otherwise there would be an additional cost in purchasing or acquiring another site. So that, again, is a really important advantage for this particular proposal. I think it's also true to say that facilities that have swimming pools are costly to run, and so the ability to co-locate as much as possible around those makes a massive difference in terms of future sustainability, and not just in terms of operational sustainability, but sustainability of service delivery, which is really important because, as has already been mentioned, it's one thing to start being active, but the real benefits of making somebody who is inactive at the moment and or has long-term health conditions is that continued activity. And I think these facilities also provide a very significant opportunity for young people. And if you can get young people active from an early age, they are much more likely to stay active into later life, and that reduces cost to public health and the NHS services. The other thing just to say is that GT3 is an award-winning architect. The design they've come up with is really impressive. As has already been mentioned, the design builds in a lot of sustainability principles, including BREEAM Excellent, and the way that they've designed the facility will make it as operationally efficient as possible. So just to finish, really, just to say that the delivery of this development is a really significant opportunity for the city. It's already got funding allocated to it, so it's not taking funding from anywhere else, and it will replace a much needed facility, given that Eastney has now been closed for a number of years. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we now move on to deputations from councillors. First of all, Matthew Winnington.
Thank you, Chair. and hello colleagues. I'm going to start by holding up my lanyard today. So I'm wearing my Health and Care Portsmouth lanyard. And the thing about Health and Care Portsmouth is it's a partnership that includes the council and the NHS, our local NHS, our local GPs. And that has been at the heart of this development from the very beginning. So when this first came on the agenda, I was having conversations with the now leader of the council and officers, including David. And one of the things I said at the very beginning was when we were looking at a new provision for looking at Eastleigh Swimming Pool, which was, as has already been mentioned, it was getting towards end of life. It was still open at that stage. And then obviously subsequently it had to close because of its structural issues. So it was still open, but we were saying about, we're looking at co-location. I said, speak to the GP surgeries locally. Let's talk to our health and care partners locally and see if there might be something we can do in terms of co-location. And so what I'm massively pleased with is that we've got here today with a proposal which is not just a leisure facility, it's a facility that includes locating a GP surgery in the same building. And as has been mentioned by our last deputy, that is a very rare thing. And it's only done in this city because of our relationships, but also because there's the trust there. And actually working together to make this happen would be a massive benefit, not just to the city as a whole, but I'm particularly thinking about the people of Eastleigh and Craneswater, especially in our Eastleigh part of it, the area to the east of Eastleigh Roads, where they are often a long way from lots of facilities. If we don't have Devonshire Avenue surgery locating here now, and it would have to close because it's no longer fit for purpose, that would be a devastating impact on the people of Eastleigh, in the Eastleigh and Craneswater ward. And that really would be a backward step. The other thing that came out about those very early conversations was about making sure that the facility, a pool facility, stays in the southeast of the city, not moving it elsewhere into Southsea or other parts of the city, making sure that it's not far from where the then open and usable pool was, but obviously now a closed and unusable one. So that's the other thing about having this, it's almost by happy circumstance that we had a space that's usable, that is usable for health facilities and leisure facilities, just in the place that we need them, and in a place that is accessible by bus routes, it's easily accessible by people who are walking, and of course we already have a car park which is most of the time underused, but not far away. And indeed, when you're having a leisure centre, having something that is not literally right next door, I don't think is a real problem, especially with that provision of disabled spaces that was being proposed in the plan. So the one thing that does come up, and as you can imagine, there has been people I've spoken to in Eastleigh and Craneswater who've been for it, and people who've been against it. To be quite honest, the reason why most people, why the people who are against it is because of parking. That's the primary thing. In terms of the facility, a lot of people are in favour of it, but they're a bit wary about parking. So we're talking about people who live very close by. So it's up to you to regard. Obviously, we've had the deputation from Mr. Silman about the provision about extending the car park. I will leave that up to your judgment, colleagues. But just to say that a lot of the objections that we've had, certainly from the Eastleigh and Craneswater side of Bransbury Park, have been very much about parking when there have been objections. The facility itself, I think, is largely seen, and there is an overwhelming desire to keep a swimming pool in this area. Also, as we said, when it's been pointed out that this secures the future of Devonshire Avenue GP surgery, so the Lighthouse practice having a GP surgery effectively across the road. It is literally across the road from where it is at the moment, and therefore very accessible and easy for people is massively, massively desired and wanted. And I think having that as something that will stay in this area is really critical. And finally, I just want to reiterate what was said again by Dr. Batterjee. Having the ability to have someone go to a leisure centre and have a GP on the same site, all that social prescribing, all the ways that you can bring those things together, health and well-being. We're called Health and Care Portsmouth as our partnership because it's about health and well-being and the people of the city together. So the fact that you can go to your GP surgery maybe through a blood test and then you think, oh, I can go for a swim while I'm here, or I can go and use their facilities. Or that you can get socially prescribed and say, pop next door, oh, there's a class you can go to, literally in the same place, in the same building, is absolutely key. So this is a development that I support for the city, and I support for Eastleigh and Craneswater.
Thank you very much, Councillor Winnington. Finally, Councillor Lee Hunt.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. As I said at the beginning, I am delighted and absolutely thrilled to be here to talk to you today, or to ask you to unanimously put through this planning application. First of all, I'm also very proud to be have oversight of the Parks and Leisures team, actually now for probably the last 12 years or so, with a year or two off, and to see the turnaround of the sports provision in our city is quite remarkable. Portsmouth, so going back to the start of the meeting to talk about that southeast corner where there's a lack of provision, it has always been the case in the sports facility strategy to want to create more sports provision in the southeast. The western side of the city is very well covered by sports provision, and from the hill to the sea, there is a huge amount here. And I'm just going to list a little bit of it. You know, we start up at Peter Ashley Centre and all the things that go on there, down to the Wimmering Centre, and then down to what we're doing at KG5 that has gone through. And that was opposed, quite frankly, by a lot of people after a lot of stirring. And who would want to turn it away right now, and with the enormous benefits of that new facility recently opened has done. Then we're seeing multi-million pounds of investment into the Hillsea Lido, another swimming pool, an outdoor one. And then we drop down towards what we're doing at the underground skate park at Mile End, supported by the council. And then to the University of Sports Complex, University of Portsmouth Sports Complex, and the tennis provision in that location run by the Navy. And then you go along the seafront, enormous amount of tennis provision, which we secured from the Lawn Tennis Association, modern use facilities all the way along, including beach volleyball and the skate park, BMX pump up at Hillsea. And then we drop down to the cricket pitches and back up towards the outdoor centre at Hillsea. And all the golf courses across the state, one golf course and pitch and putt. It is an enormous amount, and I could wax lyrical. I've only touched the tip of it. And all overlain by these national events and world-class events, the Great South Run, and soon to be UK host for Ocean Race 2025. We had Ben Ainsley Racing come and open up here, but that's changed into another racing sailing venue. I mean, it's extraordinary. You can't see the wood for the trees for the sports economy and offer here in our city. And this southeast corner is almost the last piece of that jigsaw over the last 10 or 12 years of development. It's really important that it goes through for all the health benefits which have been described today, and for the enjoyment. And I'm sure some of you will talk about the learner pool that is going to be introduced as well. And you have Councillor Winnington was correct. The main opposition to this was the car parking, but since the officers have reconfigured the car park up at Eastleigh, and I understand everything the Milton Forum has said, those complaints have largely gone away by the increased number of car parking spaces from 37, another 38 spaces up to 77, I think, something there or thereabouts. And members, there are going to be loads more trees being put into this park, lots more. Everything will be renewed, including the children's play area. I mean, what is there not to like? It's an extraordinary application. 2,000 swimming pools across our country have been shut over the last decade. Here in this city, we are opening new sports provision. We are opening new swimming pools. We are investing in health and well-being through our sports offer. It is an incredible offer. I'm enormously proud of what the councillors achieved across the city for so long now, and continues to achieve when you pass this application today. I'm extremely proud to be a part of that. At the end of the day, I've listened to everything that Mr. Stillman says, but in a tight city like this, bounded by water, it's compromise. You have to compromise on virtually everything when it comes to housing, health, welfare, money. Everything has to be a compromise because we have limited space. And let's face it, 1/3 of our city is either conserved or in some other way preserved for wildlife. So there you have it. I hope you have a really good debate and look forward with interest to hearing what you have to say. And I very much hope that you'll put the planning through unamended.
Thank you very much indeed. That's the end of our people who've come to speak to us. Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Morgan, you don't need to run away. That's right. No. Thank you for your expertise. Okay, colleagues, thank you very much indeed. We now move on to questions. And if it's all right, I'm going to start the ball rolling. I just want to pick up something that Councillor Winnington said and to ask Ian. When I've talked to residents about this, the concern from a lot of people has been about the lack of car parking and where will people park. Are we satisfied that the proposals that have come forward here create adequate car parking to be able to fulfil the needs of people coming here?
Yes.
Would you like to expand on that to give a little evidence, or are we just going to take your word for it?
I think you can take my word for it. Or rather
well, no, a little evidence is always useful.
Yeah, you can read the report from paragraph 8.124 onwards, where the case officer has put in that detailed assessment of the occupancy of existing parking and that cut over into making estimates of survey future parking demand, and tables of both of those have been provided in great details in the report. Also, I'll draw attention again to the SMAT, where obviously we've highlighted some of these issues in the changing national planning policy framework, which does move away from such a predict and provide approach to a vision-led approach to parking. If we fear there's going to be lots of cars coming here, what the NPPF tells us, and indeed what your own local transport plan has been talking about for quite some time, is not to just build more car parks. It is to find ways to have a vision for transport in the city, and your vision for transport is not a car-based vision. It is a alternative transport, active transport, public transport, and support and deliver those things which are covered in this report as well. So while there has been a predict and provide option provided within here, and that enlarged car park, which does encroach on the open space, it's part of the harms highlighted within the scheme, we are satisfied that the amount of parking provided does meet the model demand, and the overall vision-led approach should help to manage and reduce that demand in the future. In light of the comments made by Mr. Silman, I have asked for any additional commentary that the Highway Authority may wish to share with me, and I'm waiting for some further comments from them, so I may be able to share those with you in the meeting if they come in response to those comments.
Thank you very much indeed. And then can I just want one more question from me, via you to probably to Mr. Moorman. My understanding is that the netball courts on the north side of the leisure centre used to be used by netball teams from quite a wide area, because we had furious residents about all the car parking that were there because of the netball. My understanding is they don't use those courts anymore, and they use elsewhere. Is that through you, Ian? Is that correct?
Yes, I can't say. Yes, so netball hasn't been played formally. Obviously, there's a lot of informal opportunities for any sport you like, formally on the site for about 4 or 5 years, and they have relocated elsewhere. Obviously, the netball investment, and there's notable netball investment in this scheme, is for enhancing those off-site provisions.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the end of my questions for the minute. Councillor Smythe.
I've got two separate questions. One, could you show us the, when you in your presentation, Ian, you flashed over what you said we wouldn't want to see or didn't want to see it as a couple of slides of the views of the new building from across the site. Yeah, yes, these ones. Can you just can we just have a moment to have a look at them? Okay, so it is indeed, as it looks, otherwise quite a low-level building, and yes, thank you.
And in those representations, the white areas, they're existing buildings, are they, Ian?
Yes, the white extrusions are buildings, and they're all existing. Yeah.
Thank you. My question was about the playground. And is it part of the proposal to, and I'm loath to mention it after my impassioned speech last time, to have some shade from trees on the new playground, and also some planting that would mitigate to some extent the particulates that would otherwise come across the playground from the road? I think we're learning more and more about the needs of children and the needs to, help their lungs to grow healthily and so forth. And I know that those two things, would it be possible to include those things?
So I put the landscape master plan on the image behind me. So there's about 10 new trees going into the playground, as you can see from those small green circles in and around the playground, as well as other native hedgerow opportunities. We have required a landscaping scheme to be submitted, so we'll finalise those details as we come forward. In terms of particulate matters, obviously the playground is located with greater frontage and closer to the highway at Brandsbury Road. It is not a traffic heavy highway from that sense, and from the best modelling available, the level of particulate matters are well within the safe category. They are closer to a road, no way of denying that, and that is, roads are massively the major source of both NOx and PM pollution, but they are well within safe levels as far as we are able to model. Obviously, opportunities to enhance and improve that landscaping as we finalise any landscaping submission under the planning conditions will be dealt with as post-consent matters.
So that you could, when you're negotiating those conditions, put a medium height hedge between the road and the play park. Would that be possible?
It is certainly possible, yes. Yeah.
So it would be possible to put a hedge along the road when you look at the landscaping conditions. That's known to be good for particulate absorption. And I'm just looking at the location of the trees and whether they will actually provide some shade on hot days. It's a south aspect. I mean, I don't know if it would be possible, but it would be good if it were. Can you answer the question of whether it would be possible to ensure that shading of some of the play area is catered for? They're mostly in the north and the west of the site, few in the southeast. Yeah, it should be all right. But if that could be put as I don't know if it would be possible to make that a
It is, so
condition.
both matters of boundary treatment and the specifics of landscaping are reserved in planning conditions, and it is certainly possible to, and would be part of that judgment. When looking at landscaping, one must balance issues of maintenance and dropping, whether that be leaves and needles and fruit, and shading, the pros and cons of that. All those matters would be sorted out as part of the broader landscape and boundary treatment of that part of the site.
And I'm conscious that on Winston Churchill Avenue, we've just taken out a boundary hedge because of the feeling of, in areas wanting people to be able to look in, so that antisocial behaviour doesn't happen. And it will have to, I'm sure the planning officers will weigh up the pros and cons of both things, because
Sure.
one thing might be okay on one side but not another, but we'll leave that to you, I suspect.
I've just tried to pull up the broader site plan, so we don't have very good clear plans that show them both, but there is also a proposal for tree planting on the Bransbury Park highway edge as well, so that we see bowls rather than hedge, but bowls of trees there, so there is that tree planting along Bransbury Road in front of the playground as well in this scheme.
That's very useful to see that. I think that will be entirely, they will grow to be quite big trees, those, I assume, and then there will be shade. I do appreciate the need to balance it out properly. Thank you for that reassurance.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Candlish.
I heard in Mr Maguire's presentation some discussion about how many more people. So can we go back to the slide which shows the big gap in the southeast where there is no provision of swimming pools? Okay, to me this is the critical slide, as I think you said in your presentation. So firstly, just to check that I'm understanding this correctly, those pink bands are 1 metre buffers, so they're kind of the sort of distance you can reasonably be expecting to walk to. 1 mile. Did I say 1 metre? I am occasionally prone to putting in, the word isn't right in my mind, but a different word comes out of my mouth. This is, I thank everyone for keeping me honest on those kind of mistakes. My serious point was, you mentioned a figure about how many more people were within one of those circles if the circle was centred on Bransbury. And I think I didn't quite hear, was it twice as many or something like that?
No, I didn't. I believe Mr Moorman may have done.
My apologies, I looked in the wrong direction. More help. Could you help me, or could I ask through the chair, Mr Moorman, to help me to understand how many people are going to be able to get to the park on foot or by other means, other than by car?
Mr Moorman, is that okay? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, if you draw a 1 mile or 20-minute walk circle around Eastney Swimming Pool, current location, around 17,000 people live within that circle. If you draw that circle around the Bransbury Park location, around 35,000 people live in that circle. So almost exactly twice as many people would live within walking distance of the new proposed location.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll come back in some comments later.
Councillor Dent?
Yeah, there's mention of 5 disabled parking spaces in the car park at the end. Is there going to be any disabled parking spaces very close to the GP surgery?
Yeah.
Yes, on-street disabled parking has been included within the intention. The parking arrangements were, it was identified additional parking demand was needed, and obviously that's on top of EV charging demand and disabled demand, and the choices need to be made to ensure that we have that proximity for disabled on the high street, but also provided adequate disabled scale and EV charging without unduly limiting the on-street parking, which obviously residents on the south side of the road benefit from. So there's been a mixture. There's some on-street disabled parking to be provided, and disabled parking in the expanded car park, as well as that EV charging in the expanded car park.
Councillor Atwell.
So the bit that I'm less assured around is parking, traffic impacts and the travel plan. So for example, 20 spaces for 20 cycles. Doesn't feel like an awful lot to me. And no indication about the volume of scooters that might be able to be stored. I mean, is it one scooter? Is it 50? What's the thinking? To pick up on Councillor Dent's point, so 5 disabled spaces in the car park doesn't sound very many. I know there's the on-street parking as well. Loss of a bus stop. And the travel plan is, you know, we're going to do all this stuff, and we'll sort out the travel bits later on, and we'll do some work around that. But no sort of assurances around possibly using all the money we've got coming into the city for increased and better bus connections to this area of the city. So just some more assurance around those things, please.
I'm not sure how much more assurance I can give you. So that they are the number of cycle spaces provided, as described in the opportunity. There's obviously informal cycle parking throughout the park opportunity as well. We can impose additional condition to require more cycle provision to be provided. There are some opportunities, some gaps in the site, but that's more built form, obviously, on this local green space if you make covered cycle spaces. In terms of the scale of this, it's an unusual building. We can't sort of read it off the list of this is the correct number of cycle hoops. So the Highway Authority is satisfied that it does reflect best practice guidance, and that is a reasonable provision for parking. Obviously, a lot of our scooters, which are, have racks and things, we would, I'm sure, be looking to relocate some of those as part of our separate, and would be a Transport Authority decision to see if there are racks that can be added into the area. One of the key advantages and why this site has been found to be sequentially preferable is because it is in a more sequentially preferable location from a use point of view, not from the open space point of view, but you are near the nearby parade of shops and other linked trip opportunities, as well as on an established bus route. The frequency not being proposed to change by this issue, but obviously that's a demand response question for Simley. But there are opportunities because it is near to an established centre for utilising those linked trip opportunities to enhance the accessibility and sustainable transport opportunities that they bring.
And the other bit, I mean, sort of, what does low level of trips mean in traffic impact 8.143? Page 44.
So the increase in trip demand is detailed on 8.139. And it is those numbers that are considered by our Highway Authority and by the planners to be relatively low. So we are talking a total number of in 24, out 23 in the AM peak, and about twice that in the PM peak. So it is in the area of a couple of score additional trips into the network for the site. There will be additional trips. It is a new facility, but these are not hundreds and hundreds of additional vehicle movements we're anticipating going onto this part of the network. We are talking in the PM peak, the busiest period, within that hour, another 85 vehicles coming net in and out, and that's accepting that not all of those, in fact, would necessarily be truly net numbers. Not all of those would be new numbers. We would hope people would, for example, who would go to the current GP surgery, that they're already in the network, coming just across the road, they'd be coming here instead now. So that would obviously be reduced from that in terms of additional congestion. So with if a worst case scenario, 85 additional vehicle movements in the peak PM hour, that is a relatively low number of trips where the Highway Authority is satisfied can be accommodated within the network without any severe adverse impacts.
Okay, Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Chair. Well over a year ago, we set up our world famous gazebo in Eastney Road, and at this time the plan was very, very much in its infancy, but the overwhelming concern that people had around there was parking. I appreciate that we have parking provision at the eastern end of the development, but even people who are going to engage in vigorous physical activity are naturally lazy. What are we going to do about people who decide they don't want to use that car park and park in the roads nearby? Are we going to extend the parking scheme, or introduce a parking scheme to deter them?
There is already a parking scheme in the surrounding roads.
Which hours does it cover?
Evening, because that's when the main usage, the main pressure for parking is.
Thank you.
Councillor Candlish.
I've got a few more things, but since we're on a parking theme, parking roll, let me go with that one. I just want to explore, can we now go to the picture which shows the far southeast corner of the park best, where we can see the new car park that's going to be put in? Okay, thank you. So okay, can you talk me through the green bit, which is the incremental piece, and explain what Grasscrete is? Is there anything like that in the area already?
I would be surprised if there isn't. It's a very common facility, but I couldn't say for certain. So Grasscrete is a lattice work of firm concrete, usually, which allows grass or other green substance to grow through it. So you will have seen it in a number of different places. From recollection, there's a fair chunk of it at Fort Cumberland car park. I'm trying to think in the local area where you might see it elsewhere. But so that green area is the extended issue. The proposal is to use it with Grasscrete rather than tarmac. Grasscrete does work most effectively where the traffic movements are lower than they otherwise would be, because as you drive over the concrete elements, you're obviously not damaging the concrete, but you are damaging the grass. If you're doing that every day, all day, it's a full car park every day, all day, that grass is not going to survive. But if you're doing it as the overflow bit of the car park, then that grass has an opportunity to regenerate and grow through that gaps, and it can have a very verdant appearance. The lower the usage, the more verdant the appearance is, and the intention is to have that area provided, as well as you can see, a few additional trees dotted through it as well to add to that, have that area provided through Grasscrete material.
So since I know that area, reasonably well, and the next bit north of that is a very nondescript little patch of trees, it's just used for dog walkers going through there, and that car park is not heavily used most of the year, and judging by the numbers that are put forward, won't be most of the time here. It is therefore likely that that's actually going to have quite a green appearance. It is going to be, as your visual shows, there's going to be the tarmacked area, looking very much like an old school tarmacked car park, and then an extended area which is green but able to withstand cars parking on it if there's a real peak moment, like when the football's on or some other event. Is that about right?
That is certainly the applicant's intention. Obviously, if more, we can't say don't park here, park there. You wouldn't be closing and opening it. So there's always a degree of pinch of salt with that. But yes, that would be how such open space car parks usually operate. And there are lots of examples around the country that are using the same logic of the high frequency usage at the front where people want to park in concrete, so it's a maintainable surface, and the low frequency usage at the rear being Grasscrete, or indeed even just grass right at the back. But I mean, certainly the volume we'd be looking here, that I wouldn't be recommending you just go with grass. It would be more problematic than anything else, but that's clearly the applicant's intent.
And Councillor Cambridge, just if you look at the area in that circle just north of the that is where Southern Water have dug down enormously deep, huge reservoir tanks for sewage as a fallback position if the pumping station fails. So the trees are there, but actually it's the development underground that is really important there, and that's been there for a long time, and is a really important fallback position for the safety of the city in terms of flooding.
And indeed, it was exactly that experience. That's what I was trying to understand, because I didn't even know that sewage thing was there, because it looks like a green piece of the park when you cross it. But actually, you understand that it's just been a covered thing, and therefore, that's what I was trying to get a sense for, whether this would be similar.
Yeah.
I have another question, not related to parking, if I'm...
Indeed, you may.
Can keep the microphone. This relates to the actual provision of the swimming pools. So my understanding is that the old derelict Eastney pool that closed was a 20-metre long pool, and the new pool is going to be a 25-metre pool. So it's actually a bigger pool, kind of like for like. But this proposal proposes a second pool, which wasn't at the other site, which is the learner pool. I'm sorry, I looked through the pack and I looked online, but maybe I missed it. How big is that learner pool?
I'm trying to remember if we have actually put the square metre. I mean,
I think Mr. Morman might help.
So I can say so that there's an imagery for you, and I can confirm that they are 4 25-metre lanes, so you can see roughly proportionately, for those that work in a more visual way, the size of the learner pool, which is the rectangle to the left of it. In terms of specific dimensions, you may well have to ask the applicant to confirm that.
Mr. Morman.
Thank you. Happy to confirm. So the learner pool is 12.5 metres wide, which is about half the height of that diagram. So and it's 8.5 metres in the other dimension. So the overall increase from the existing provision is about 75% more space of pool than is currently on offer.
And Mr. Morgan, how deep is the learner pool?
So the learner pool will be 0.9 at its deepest, 0.6 metre at its shallowest.
And what was the depth at Eastney?
So Eastney's shallow end was 1.4 metres deep, which was at least half a metre deeper than Sport England recommend for early years swimming.
Mr. Candlish, have we exhausted you?
No, well, we've certainly satisfied me on that question, and I really like the return to the visual because it makes it it's so obvious actually when you see the picture about how big the learner pool is. I was thinking it was like a little paddling pool kind of thing, but actually it's not. That's a sizable pool.
Colleagues, any more questions before we move on to comments? No? I'm going to take the Chair's prerogative and say thank both the people who produced the plans, but also the report. I thought it was a very good report, very thorough. It seems to me that we're in an incredibly good position, which many councils aren't in, about being able to produce the idea of a new swimming pool, because lots of other councils are shutting them left, right and centre. But it seems to me we're in this is an amazing opportunity for us. In terms of people being able to get there, the number 1 bus, the number 2 bus, the number 17 bus and the number 25 all go past it. So it's very well connected. When I've been talking to people in the shops there, they've been very supportive because they think it'll support that local shopping area as well. I think it's great to have a learner pool there, and there are schools all around the local area which will use it, and children need to learn to be able to swim. It's part of the national curriculum, but actually we're a city by the sea, and children need to learn to swim, and having a really good learner pool I think is going to be great. And reusing space that's been the netball courts which really aren't used now, and reusing that space seems a very sensible thing to be doing. I went into the doctor's surgery and I have to say I thought the stairs in there were lethal, and I'm surprised we haven't had patients who've been hadn't been injured in there. But it'd be great to have a decent modern facility with all the things that you need. Basic things like modern sluices, so that you can have things that are decently clean. A place for not just for GPs but all the other medical professionals that we need. And I am coping with a trapped nerve in my back, so I am very appreciative of those sorts of things. So I think this is a really good thing. Inevitably, there are compromises to be made. And I think we've recognised what's been said in terms of the location of the play area. I understand that Sport England are very keen that we keep space for 4 pitches laying out there, and that means that the play area might has to move. But the figures for the difference in terms of the location, in terms of air pollution, is looks very, very small. The thing that was really interesting when lockdown happened was the NO2 readings in the city came down very fast because there was no traffic. Particulates didn't. So no traffic on the roads, no difference to particulates. Because the particulates also include things like pollen. So that was very interesting. So I am really, I think this is a good scheme that will do the city a great deal of good. So I'm very happy to propose the officer recommendation for this. Pregnant pause. Mary, Councillor Vallely, sorry.
That's all right. I would happily second that because I've had a really long chat with David about this. I've really looked at all of the consultation work. I've gone around the site twice, excuse me, and it's a very awkward site, actually. And I think, you know, you've done as much with it as you possibly can, really, and satisfy Sport England and as many people as possible. So I would second your proposal.
And just one other quick thing, I know there's big public support. Councillor Barrett has told me that a bit of door knocking that's happened, 160 surveys back, 83% of them in favour. Councillor Candlish.
So I was just going to make a few comments as we went through. Basically, I think the Lib Dem administration's proposal for a combined Bransbury Community Leisure and GP facility is a fantastic move. It just...
Councillor Candlish, the important thing here is that we don't do party politics in here.
My apologies, the proposal for a combined Bransbury Community Leisure and GP surgery just makes sense. It is a balance. We have to recognise that we are intruding upon green space to be able to achieve that. We are going to have to make some other compromises we go through, but the overwhelming sense from all the people I've ever spoken to about this is that this is going to be a positive move for the community. Even today, before today, I hadn't realised how much more pool provision we were going to get. And I'm particularly pleased that it's going to be in a shallow learning environment. My kids used to be swim teachers at the Eastney Pool, and no shallow end was a real concern. This is a modern facility and meets a huge unmet need. I could go through all the other points that have gone through, but I fear that would fall foul of some other misstep by me in terms of protocol. The one thing I will like to pick up is something Mr Maguire said about the transport. As the Cabinet Member for Transport, I have to declare a related interest, but not prejudicial. So the vision for the transport is not around moving away from the car. It's about providing a people-centred, easy, safe, reliable and accessible green transport network for the city, which will include vehicles, and that's why some of the comments I would have explored further around the particulate, I think, are going to be partly addressed by changes in the vehicle fleets they use as we move towards the electric, and also the location is so much better for having a pool, because there are loads and loads of people are going to be able to walk to the centre or find other means of getting there, the bus, the bikes, the alternatives. They are there. Yet there is still provision for those people who still will want to use their cars, and for the people with disabilities who need vehicle access. So some of my thunder might have been stolen, but I'm happy to keep quiet now and support the proposal.
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak? Oh, Councillor Dent.
Yeah, it is an excellent project, apart from the fact that basically one of the most participated sports, not just in Portsmouth, but across the country, is not being provided for, i.e. badminton. There is no indoor courts. We call it a leisure centre. That's a bit sort of, it's not quite a leisure centre because we're not coping with other sports. But apart from that, yeah, it's a perfect solution.
Thank you. I think my understanding is there is alternative provision for badminton elsewhere in the city, but we have to look at this planning application on its own merits. Okay. I think if that's it, term of speakers, and there's one proposal on the table. Can I see those in favour? Please show. Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, moving on to the next application. Colleagues, if you were here just for this one, you don't need to stay for the rest. You're more than welcome to do so if you wish, but you don't need to. Certainly not. Of course, sorry. Yes, you have. You've got your bus pass now. Oh. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Can we then move on to St Chad's? And we have two. No, let's have the presentation first. Simon, is this yourself?
It is. Thank you, Chairman. We have an application at 8 St Chad's Avenue in Hilsea Ward for a change of use from a Class C3 dwelling house to a 7-bedroom, 8-person house in multiple occupation. The application site is at the western end of St Chad's Avenue, near to the junction with London Road, mid-terrace property. 2-storey internally with a roof storey previously provided under permitted development. With respect to the, the applications come to the committee because of the number of objections, 9, and at the request of Councillor Simpson. With respect to the local balance of the community, within the 50-metre radius set out in the supplementary planning document, there are 5 existing HMOs, which includes the application site because it already had a C3, C4 flexible consent from 2023. 5 properties out of the 90 means that there are 5.55% as it's an existing consent there. There's no change in that percentage, so it remains well below the 10% threshold, indicative of a mixed and balanced community. There are no further external changes to the property, having already been expanded, as mentioned a few moments ago. There are the original plans of the house 2 or 3 years ago now. Here are the approved C4, C3 flexible plans from last year, showing 6 bedrooms. There were 2 further, there was the main communal kitchen diner at the rear, and there were 2 further communal rooms in the middle of the property that has enabled the further space now for the further application in front of you today. The C4 consent wasn't implemented quite correctly with respect to the internal layout. So when this application was received, it was submitted as a Class C4 HMO with an increased occupancy to 8 persons. But because of the incorrect implementation internally of some of the rooms on the ground floor, the application has reverted to C3 dwelling house to a sui generis multiple occupation. 8 bedrooms were proposed, so a moment ago I referred you to the 2 extra communal rooms in the centre of the property at the ground floor, labelled 7 and 8 here. This is how the application came in. Officers were concerned with bedroom 8 having a window facing sideways, looking at the boundary wall or fence, and next door's rear wing. So it's not a very good outlook and light. So the applicant, at our request, amended the application to return that particular room to a communal use. It's called a gym, but it could be any other sort of living room, dining room, TV room, etc. as well as the main living, dining, kitchen at the rear. The applicant wished to maintain 8 persons and so has applied or clarified that they would like bedroom 3 as double occupancy. Hence now we arrive at the application from Class C3 to a 7-bedroom, 8-person HMO. Internally, there are some pictures of various rooms, the main communal living, dining room, kitchen at the rear, looking down towards the French doors to the garden, one of the bedrooms at the front of the property, the first floor, I think, and another bedroom, bedroom 5. This was the room in question, labelled as a gym, which is why we weren't so keen on that. So that is being maintained as a gym or other communal use, and a couple more of the bedrooms. And then finally, the bike store to the rear of the property. So I've dealt with the local balance, mix and balance community, and how it accords with policy and guidance, and then moving on to the adequacy of the living accommodation set out in the committee report. All the bedrooms meet or exceed the minimum size standards, including bedroom 3 at the first floor for double occupancy. The combined living, kitchen, dining room at the back is 27.98 square metres, exceeding the requirement of 22.5. And, as an extra, the communal room labelled as a gym would still be provided, thereby meaning there's a very good standard of internal accommodation for residents. So on those basis, and with respect to all the other matters set out in the report, officers can recommend approval. Chairman, shall I just take the committee through the SMAT, the Supplementary Matters Report? As per Ian's presentation for the first application, we just need to consider the new updated MPPF from last week. There are no MPPF policies that explicitly refer to houses and multiple occupation, but of course the provision of housing in general is given strong support. This application concerns the change of use from one form of housing, a dwelling house, to another form of housing, an HMO. Paragraph 11 of the MPPF concerns the presumption in favour of sustainable development. The paragraph has been amended. It now requires strong reasons to refuse development where the presumption applies, rather than the clear reasons set out in the now superseded MPPF. And it also has extra guidance policy about paying particular regards to sustainable development in terms of location, making the effective use of land, and securing well-designed places. These are all considered to weigh in favour of granting a planning permission in this case. And then lastly, we just had some amended plans to tidy up the elevation, I think, and for the bike storage at the rear. So there's just an amended plan condition there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. We have 2 people down to speak, Mr. Farr and Councillor Simpson, who doesn't appear to be with us today. Councillor Dent, do you know the location of your colleague?
No idea.
Okay. Have you not got him electronically tagged?
If only, if only.
Mr. Farr.
Thank you. This application's been in the system since February. As we get through our older applications, you'll start to see the last of our 2-stage approaches to sui gen applications, and I'm hopefully glad we'll be getting a decision today. Although the description has been revised quite recently, the property has previous permission as C3 or C4 and has since been occupied as a C4. However, because of a few very minor deviations from the approved plans, the officer felt it should still be considered a C3. We are still within the 3-year implementation period, however that may apply to a dual use. We've compromised on the number of rooms, as stated before, because of the unsuitability of one of the rooms. As I elaborated on 2 weeks ago, there is a large market for couples to live in HMOs, so it's a good option for the landlord to have. The inclusion of potentially a gym also takes away another potential bill for future occupiers. I think if there was an intention to use the other large room for double occupancy, we would probably be talking an 8-bed, 10-person scheme, but we're not, so please don't presume we're going to be back here in 12 months to discuss that. For many landlords, there is a limit on how many tenants they wish to manage. As always with Apple Core applications, we strive to ensure the proposal before you complies with all the relevant policies, SPDs, standards required for planning, licensing and building control. What may not have been noted is there is also a utility room for laundry in this property. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, questions? Could we go back to the pictures, Simon? There's a picture at the front of the building, and I was concerned that it looked as, yeah. Looking at those windows, do you know how they open? Because it doesn't look as if they can, and if they can't get any fresh air. Because all the rest of them are split halfway through, and so you can open half of it. Simon?
I have a feeling, I think I can see a divide on the left-hand side of the bay on each of them. I don't know if that means it's an opening light there or not. There'll be building regs to comply as well in general, which undoubtedly the applicant will have done. So I'm not entirely sure about how to answer your question. I don't think that is a planning matter, though. It is for the building regulations and the licensing.
Carry on. Microphone, carry on. Sorry. Otherwise, your words are not safe for posterity.
Sorry. I think they just push out. However, I can confirm it has had building control sign-off and licensing sign-off, so it wouldn't have had it if it didn't have natural ventilation into the room.
Okay. And then my other ongoing concern is bedroom 7 with how big is the window, because the only ability to get any light is down that huge, what is now an enormously long return. It's window, it's door. Is that right, Simon?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the laser pointer for you.
Yeah, there we are.
Yeah. That looks like a pretty...
Yes, no, that's fine.
Sized window.
Yeah. Yep. Some of them are tiny, so thank you very much for that. Any other questions, colleagues? Councillor Atwell?
I know Mr. Parr addressed this in his deputation, and so good that he has assured us that this will remain a 7-bed, 8-person property, but how can we, as a committee, make sure that it, excuse me, this doesn't come back?
I'm going to propose that we put a condition on in terms of occupancy. Any other questions? Sorry.
If I may, I'll give you standard advice. That's licensing job, not yours. Don't put a condition on. It would not meet the tests. If you wish to not follow that advice, I would recommend for this one, I'm not sure you want a condition on occupancy, as in no more than 7 people. You actually want a condition on the room shown as the gym shall not be used as a bedroom, because you don't really care where they sleep. And if there's 2 rooms that are big enough to be double occupancy, you don't care which is which. So I think it wouldn't be a condition on occupancy, it would be a condition on the use of the room to remain not as a bedroom.
Okay. I think in the description it says 7-bedroom, 8-person within the description anyway. So I think
that's not an enforceable part of the permission. So.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, colleagues? Councillor Candlish.
I have a question about the SMAT and the updated MPPF guidance, just to make sure I've got my head around this correctly. So we're expected to have a presumption in favour of development as the sort of fundamental position for guidance, is my understanding. And we're now changing that so that it requires strong reasons to refuse rather than clear refusals. Is strong stronger than clear? Is that the direction it has moved in? Otherwise, I don't understand what has happened.
This is new government guidance. We're yet to have any interpretation in the form of appeal decisions or case law, so we can only give professional opinion. The professional opinion I would provide is strong is stronger. The example I give is obviously you can have a perfectly clear reason that is clear but weak. whereas a strong reason, but it could be confusing and strong or clear and strong. Clear is not a particularly helpful word because it doesn't go to the weight to be given to it. So it could be a very weak and unsubstantiated reason, but well articulated and still be a clear reason. Whereas a strong reason is quite clear. Yes, the presumption tilts further. It's no good just being contrary to the National Planning Policy. You've got to have a really strong reason. It is a presumption in favour. It's not just, you don't get to decide whether you want to follow it or not. You have to have very strong reasons to justify not granting something in accordance with the framework.
So a further weakening of this planning committee's capacity?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is that okay for questions? Okay, in terms of comments, I'm happy to move the officer recommendation with the extra condition that the room defined as a gym shall not be used for a bedroom.
I'm happy to second.
Okay. Are there any other proposals? Okay, can I see those in favour? Please show. Those against, please show. Those abstaining, please show. Okay, planning permission is granted. Okay, moving on to item 3.8c on the High Street, which, let me just get to the correct paper, is on page 67. Simon, I think we're back with you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is an application at 8C High Street, Cosham, at the northern end of the High Street. It's for a change of use from a gym to a 14-bed house and multiple occupation, which includes construction of an additional storey and the installation of some windows. The application has come to the Planning Committee due to the number of objections at 10. So we are just at the very northern end of the pedestrian precinct, which is just off to the south of the pointer here. So the application site fronts the High Street with its eastern elevation. At its rear, it has a rear compound, car park, effectively, bins, etc., and vehicular access onto Spur Road, as indicated in red there. There are different town centre uses, mostly commercial retail focused. There are some offices to the southwest and some flat above a shop, for example, just to the west here on Spur Road, but mostly town centre retail. Cosham Library is just off to the northwest, we'll see in another image, and the pub opposite as well on this junction. And Southampton, the big roundabout just to the west with Southampton Road is just out of image as well. So this is the application site looking north to south, so you can see the pedestrian precinct there starting, going south towards the railway station. And we have two properties on the ground floor, British Heart Foundation and Cosham Pets, and then the ground floor entrance that goes straight upstairs takes you into the existing gym, hairdressers next door, etc. You'll see the two roof pitches here. The application includes removal of those and the addition of a mansard roof at the front 2/3 of the property. You'll see some more details of that in a moment. Moving to the northern side of the site, this is the vehicular access you saw that takes you in, and that's the car park compound at the rear. That's the stairs up to the back of the site that will be retained, and the two-storey rear element there. With respect to whether this development would still result in a mixed and balanced community, as you would have seen in your report, this is not the more common situation of an HMO proposed in a residential street. This is in a town centre. There are only two existing residential properties touched by the 50-metre radius. The pub to the north obviously has a flat in it, and a flat above a shop to the west. So the addition of a residential property here, an HMO, would take the number to 3, and they would therefore have 1 out of 3 HMOs in the 50-metre radius, 33%, above your 10% guidance in the SPD for a mixed and balanced community. As I said before, this of course is an entirely different situation in a local centre. Local and national policy encourages more residential use in a local centre, in particular above retained ground floor commercial uses. So you have the best of both worlds. You have continued commercial or other services provided at the ground floor, and then you have people living upstairs, which provides more life in the town centre in the evenings, for example, and more trade, more use of all the facilities, public transport, and so on. And indeed, Cosham High Street has had a number of consents in recent years up and down quite a long high street for various conversions of little used or redundant commercial space upstairs into flats with extensions and so on. So there's a general pattern there of more activity in the evenings, for example. So although it's on the face of it breaches your guidance in terms of the 10% rule, this would actually improve matters with respect to vitality and such matters in the town centre, in officers' opinion. Moving on more to the details of the application, pedestrian access will be from the front. I'll show you the front elevation in a moment in the existing front door. There would also be a rear access through the compound, should you come in through the back and use the one parking space. P4 is a parking space allocated to this, and here is the bike store. 4 spaces are retained for the 2 ground floor uses. I believe the British Heart Foundation uses one of its spaces for refuse storage, and then a parking space, and Cosham Pets have their 2 parking spaces there. So no change for those occupiers, and anyone coming in through the back in the HMO can come in through the back door should they wish. That's the front elevation you'll recognise from a few moments ago with the dual pitch roof, also seen to the rear. That's the existing door up into the gym. So that roof would be removed at the front, a parapet raised up there, and a standing seam metal mansard roof provided above that, also visible from the rear, albeit more set back from the rear. Just indication of some lighting provided, and there's a first floor terrace there for the amenity of the occupiers. This is the southern elevation. I forgot to indicate to you this vehicular access takes you through to Admiral House, which is an office building. That's outside the site, but it has the southern flank wall of the building, which is that elevation. 3 windows would be provided that would look across the rear commercial area of neighbouring properties above and beyond, and the new top floor extension, another window there. Otherwise, the windows to the front and to the back. That's the existing layout of the gym, first floor layout, and the roof. An element of the pitch roof would be retained. This would become flat roofed, and the new mansard, and then the main body of the first floor. So coming in up the stairs from the ground floor into the HMO, if approved, as a laundry room and the large shared communal dining, living, kitchen area that goes out into the terrace I've mentioned there and the rear stairs, and then a series of large bedrooms, all with en suites, up again into the second floor, and 6 more bedrooms also of similarly large size. With respect, while we're on that paragraph, slide, with respect to the adequacy of accommodation proposed, all the bedrooms will be required to be 10 square metres. They're all much beyond that, ranging from around about 14, 15, 17, 18. So very good sized rooms for the occupiers. And the communal area goes beyond our normal guidance, which gets beyond, well, it deals with 6+ occupiers. At 14 was some way beyond that. So we've presented different ways of calculating whether or not this will be adequate. Whichever way you slice it, it would be, in particular if you worked it out pro rata compared to a 6-bedroom, a 6-occupier, it's still beyond the square meterage at 54 square metres. And there's the additional laundry and all the space in the large bedrooms. So officers are happy with the standard accommodation that will be provided for the occupiers. Lastly, just a couple of sections there. That's the tall height commercial space for the gym. This is the slightly lower floor spaces for the HMO residential accommodation and the extra story. And you can see the setback of the mansard. Just an aerial photograph, just to give you a bit more feel again for the site. That's the flank wall next door, Admiralty House, but this is the rear compound, parking, bikes, storage, but refuse storage for the development. There's that south flank wall presently, so new windows would go in here where you can see the pointer and would look south across the back and above the commercial property to the immediate south. That's the compound looking into it from the rear vehicular access, and that's looking from the building out towards the rear vehicular access, takes you north onto the high street. That's Admiralty House, Compass House to the rear. So there we are, members. Officers are happy with the principle of the development, the mixed and balanced community, and the standard of accommodation, and can recommend it to you. On to the supplementary matters. Same updates or similar with respect to the MPPF. General support for housing. This provides new housing, not an increase or change of the type of housing like the last one and the next application. So there is a strong presumption in favour of housing across national policy. With respect to the loss of the gym, the MPPF has no changes to Chapter 7, talking about the vitality of town centres. Indeed, in this case, the commercial uses would be retained at ground floor. And with respect to healthy and safe communities, there's no material change with respect to sports facilities if we would classify the gym as falling within that. So officers are happy with the overall balance and the provision of the housing as opposed to the loss of the gym. Thank you.
Okay. Questions, colleagues? I have one. Simon. Oh, beg your pardon. Yes, Chris, many thanks. You told me off for getting the wrong order. We do have a deputation from Mr. James Bengery. Hello. Would you like to come and find someone with a microphone? Good afternoon. And do push the button so that your mic goes live. Thank you very much indeed. You have 6 minutes, sir. Now that microphone doesn't sound as if it's working.
Testing. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair and members. Apologies. Been asked to say a few words on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Darren Brewer. You have heard from a planning officer today regarding the ProPods application for 8 High Street, Cosham. We are seeking planning permission to convert the upper floor, which is currently a gym that has struggled to trade since the pandemic, into a 14-bed ProPod co-living property. This will include the addition of a mansard roof and the creation of an outdoor space located to the rear of the building. As you're aware, Cosham High Street, like many high streets, not just in Portsmouth but across the country, has undergone significant changes and requires repurposing. And we believe ProPods can play an essential role in this process. ProPods is Portsmouth's leading co-living provider with over 100 rooms across the city and surrounding areas, many of which is located in high streets and retail spaces. We firmly believe that repurposing these properties to create accommodation not only addresses the local housing need, but also contributes to the revitalisation of the area, bringing growth and benefits to the community. This type of accommodation also frees up 1 and 2 bedroom flats for the local population, as many of our residents, or ProPodians, typically stay for 12 to 18 months before relocating for work or other opportunities. 8 High Street is ideally located for workers at QA Hospital, and we are seeing considerable demand for accommodation within walking distance of the hospital. This is likely due in part to the newly opened £60 million A&E department. Additionally, we house young professionals working at nearby locations, including Lakeside and North Harbour, BAE and Portsdown Hill. As you will see from the officer's report, there is a recognised shortage of residential accommodation at this end of the high street, and we believe the scheme would help meet that demand. The planning officer has recommended the scheme for approval, and we hope the committee will support that recommendation. It's also worth noting that ProPods recently had a planning permission granted for a similar project at 38 Collington Crescent, and one of the comments from the committee was that the quality and size of the HMO is welcomed and wish to see more of these schemes. We believe this proposal reflects that sentiment, and we look forward to delivering more high-quality ProPods in the city and when suitable properties and locations are identified. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much indeed. So, now, get the correct order. Colleagues, questions? I have one which... So Simon, we have a policy which I'm very keen that we keep about the 10% rule. This breaks the 10%, but it's in an area of very few residential buildings, so can you give me an assurance that if we go with the recommendation, that it will not be used as a way of undermining the 10% rule in residential areas?
That's very straightforward, Chairman. Yes, of course, you're familiar that each and every application is assessed on its own merits. This is a different scenario to the normal. So it's not comparable to your residential street with 60, 70 properties and however many HMOs proposed or existing. This is entirely different set of circumstances. So no, it would not undermine the more common application of the policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Atwell.
Mine's about parking. So the standard requires 2 off-road parking spaces, is that correct? 1 is provided, but the wording in the report is 2 off-road parking spaces for sui generis HMOs with 4 or more bedrooms. To use your description, this is some way beyond that. So what does the parking standards tell us about 14-bedroom HMOs or 20-bedroom or 30-bedroom HMOs?
Thank you, Councillor. It doesn't anticipate that either, but you would have noticed we've consulted the highways engineer. They have no objection to it. Undoubtedly, they've taken into account, like we have, the town centre location with access to all the range of facilities you expect in a town centre, shops, employment, services, leisure, as well as the excellent public transport here, buses and a stone's throw away from the train station. So we would have been quite happy probably with no parking at all. We can expect people to walk, use public transport and use a bike.
Councillor Atwell, do you want to come back on that? Okay. Any other question? Councillor Candlish.
I would like to go back to the picture to build on the comment the Chair made around 100%. We just need to be very careful about what we're showing. So I made the calculation based on the picture that you showed to be 100% because there is only 1. Because, and I may well be wrong on this, I don't see where the other 2 are within the circle. The number 5 is outside of the circle on the left-hand side, and at the top on the pub, this may just be my education, is it, where do we measure to? Is it to the border of a property or the front door?
Yeah, if the tiniest corner of a property it clips within the 50-metre radius, like the pub does, like the property to the west, they are included.
So, okay, then it looks to me from a visual that it's 50%. I mean, it's clearly outside our greater than our 10% figure. And for this application, I think it's not material, but it's just that I think we need to be very clear because we put so much store on the 50-metre rule, and we often have these discussions about whether it's clipping or not clipping on other applications. So is it that number 5 in the west of the site that is the second one?
Yes, that's right. So to be very clear on the percentages, it's 2 existing, so 0 out of 2 HMOs would be 0%. You add a residential property, making 3, so 1 out of 3 would be the 33%. I think officers would support it if it was 100%, if that was the only one. It's the same effect.
From the commentary point of view, when we come to that, I might be minded in the same thing. It's not for this one. It's that I think there's a precedent here that we need to be careful about. Because to me, it may just be you put the circle not quite wide enough.
No, if I can assist, circle's absolutely fine. Where your confusion is understandably coming from is in this town centre location, it isn't as clear where the boundary of a house is. If you're looking at it in the ladder or something like that, you can quite clearly see there's the front wall, there's the side boundaries, there's the rear. There is a curtilage, a site around the pub at number 5, and if we had a different base map, you would see that the curtilage of both of those sites are falling within even if you catch the end of the back garden, it's in, and this is described in great detail in our SPD, so there's no risk of Preston being set. It's a very well-established assessment process.
I'm satisfied, thank you.
Councillor Smythe?
I think it's not a situation in which you would apply that rule, but I'm glad to hear no precedent will be established. There used to be an initiative called Living Over the Shop, and I'm sure in some cases that did attract quite a number of people living in what was probably HMOs. And the more people that can live over the shop in the city, the less land we have to take. So I would like to support this application if other people have finished commenting and propose that we accept it. There is cycle storage, so I'm glad to see that in there. So I'd like to propose that we accept this.
Councillor Smythe, let me let's see if we've got any other questions first. But any other questions, colleagues? Councillor Ashmore.
Sorry, if we could just go back to the circle on there. This may just be me not understanding. That's been known before. But what's the kind of triangle bit right at the bottom there? There's a symbol. It's got a triangle. What does that infer?
I don't know. It's some other feature on the map. It's nothing to do with the HMOs.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Or a trig point. Okay. Comments, Councillor Smythe. Okay. Okay.
I would like to propose that we accept this subject to the conditions.
Okay, thank you much. Is there a seconder? Councillor Vallerley?
Second.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other proposals? Councillor Atwell?
It's my comment, because this is a 14-bed HMO, application for 14-bed HMO, not a 14-bed, 14-person HMO. So this could be a 28-person.
Are you wishing to put a condition on it? It should be limited to 14 people.
Well, I just don't know because the room sizes allow double occupancy, but 28 people feels very different to 14. And then there must be an impact on other things, but I have to judge the application in front of me, so I'm conflicted. I think is really where I'm coming to.
Okay, Mr. Maguire.
Yeah, so I can give you the same general advice. The occupancy of the rooms, licensing will deal with that. It isn't necessary for planning to do so. That's the first advice. If you don't choose not to follow that advice in terms of then what one would look at, it's an understandable concern and a concern licensing will look at. That yes, all of these rooms are very large. Half of them are 17 square metres plus and very capable of taking double occupancy. 54 square metres plus a 10-metre laundry is a very generous living space for a lot of people. 15 people, probably fine. 28 people, as you say, maybe it's not. And that's a tricky one, that licensing is far better placed to judge than you are. An application has come in, however, for 14, and just as you did contrary to officer's advice last time, is your right. You could put on a condition saying no more than 14 occupants to this building with reference to the amount of amenity space that combined living space provides. We don't recommend you do that. We don't think it's necessary. Licensing is the right place to do that, and they will do that in due course. But it is not illegal. It's contrary to guidance, and I would suggest maybe contrary to legislation, but it's not illegal to impose that condition if you feel it is necessary to limit the occupation to 14 people.
Can I come back to Councillor Atwell? Does that answer your question?
No, I'm still confused.
You're still confused. Okay.
The application does say on paragraph 814 and 815 that the planning permission is sought for 14 persons, and it says it twice or more in the report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Candlish?
Like Councillor Atwell, I'm a bit conflicted about this. So I'm glad that there is actually still something for the planning committee to have to do, because this does seem to be one where we have to exercise our judgment about the application we see in front of us. This particular application looks to be quite high quality. My daughter lives, as I often say, my daughter lives in an HMO in Bristol, and I would much rather she was living in this one than the one she's in at the moment. However, as a comment, I do think we need to have a think about these very large ones, because I don't see the difference in principle between... When I first looked through this, I spent a long time abroad, and I used to see sort of hostels, as I would describe them, in the middle of the desert or somewhere, and I worried that this was going to be of that nature. But having seen this and understood a little bit better, on this one I am reassured, but I think it is something we're going to have to think about as a committee if this is a developmental trend that is coming, because 14 in any one particular building, we started from the phrase of an HMO, a house of multiple occupancy, and the idea behind that I think is different to this, but I don't quite know how to respond to that. So I will think what I need to do when I vote, but that's something I think for the planning committee to think about.
Okay, Councillor Dent?
Yeah, difficult one. It does seem that we've got certain standards that we, every planning meeting we stick with the 10% rule in parking spaces and everything else. Yes, it is special circumstances, it's in a high street, but we seem to overlook two of them, the parking space. Yeah, it's, unfortunately I cannot, because of, you know, it just seems as if we're going to be setting a precedence that basically, that we can actually sort of bypass the rules and regulations that we've got in place for a reason. Yes, it is special circumstances, but I still believe it's pushing the boundaries a bit too far.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask Councillor Smythe, would you be happy with your proposal to refer to 14 occupants, as in the report?
I mean, the rooms are absolutely enormous. It does say in the report that it wants to be 14. I'd be happy to leave it at that and leave it to licensing. The rooms are very, very big indeed.
Okay.
So I think if... I don't really care, actually. I don't have a strong feeling about it, whatever anybody who seconds it wants.
Okay. Councillor Atwell?
I think just my point was that the application, the title of the application doesn't say 14 persons. It's in the body of the report, but you know what I'm looking at. It's an application for a 14-bed HMO, not a 14-bedroom, 14-person HMO.
So, Councillor, can I ask you, are you wanting a condition that says 14 people?
Probably. I'm still...
Can you be a little...
And, you know, and to pick up on Councillor Dent's point about the... you know, we put great stock in the fact that we have a 10% rule. And there will always be an exception. I know we don't do planning by numbers and all the rest of it, except when we do. And, you know, so I'm still not quite there with any of it.
Okay. In which case, can I make a proposal for an amendment that we limit it to 14 people as a condition, and on that basis I'll be happy to second the proposal. Councillor Smythe.
I am... say again that living over the shop is an extremely good way of creating decent housing for people. And for that reason, it is completely different than a house in multiple occupancy, which almost by definition has neighbours that are other houses. And the rooms are very, very big. They're all... but if that's the wish of the meeting, I don't mind very much. But this is a very different sort of application than we've had recently. You know, these rooms are big.
Councillor Ashmore.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, like we've discussed about the 10% thing and why this could be a possible exception, I think we can all see why it might not apply to this one as it would in other residential areas. But that, you know, we fought for this 10% thing. We're very proud of this 10% rule that we've got in there to make sure it's not oversaturated. So, you know, whether it's an exception for this one, does that open the floodgates later on down? We don't know. And whether it should be in our policy as an exception, then that's a separate argument. And my other thing is, if there's, you know, I can see why it's if turning it into a living accommodation, otherwise it wouldn't be doing as well as a commercial use there. But 14 people HMO, you know, 14 people, 28 people, whoever's in there, however many bedrooms, I've got huge concerns. However big the rooms are, and they are decent sized rooms, that's 14 people using shared kitchen, cooking, washing facilities. That just really makes me think it might not be viable.
Councillor Smythe.
I mean, I repeat what has been said already in here, is that this is a high street that's pretty dead at night, which there isn't necessarily enough people using cafes, restaurants and other things. It is our aim to regenerate town centres like this, and having people living here will be one of the ways in which it gets regenerated. It's exceptionally sustainable in terms of transport, in terms of people being able to take the train, even to commute to London from here. There was a young woman doing that in Havant when I was on the train the other day. I think we have to accept this is quite different. The overstuffed HMO is a real problem when you have neighbours on either side living. There's nobody living near here. I'm not sure what the situation is about other living over the shopping cotton, but I would doubt that it's very intense, and we indeed haven't had any objections to it. So I just wanted to lay that in front of people. Have we had any objections to it?
Yes, a number.
Have a look quick.
Yeah, it's been brought to the committee because there have been 10 objections.
10 objections, and they're
In paragraph 1.1.
Are they from neighbours?
Well, yeah, they're from dotted around, including Cosham Pets in the ground floor, who was concerned about the use of the backyard, you know, the sharing of the car parking, the bike stores and so on, which is why I think I would have explained that to you anyway, but that's why I highlighted about the parking spaces retained for the commercial occupiers and the space available for the 3 new uses to lie against the 3 existing uses. And she was also concerned about the construction period, really, where the scaffolding, compound materials may go. That is a matter for the applicant to work out, presumably the highways department, the other landowners and so on, so that everything is done correctly.
I mean, I did make a note of that there on page 82 listed. It isn't the loss of a family dwelling, it's creating housing out of a gym. I'm very happy to go along with the 14 condition if that is, but
well,
this is such a different sort of application. It's not disturbing a house with a family in next door or anything like that.
And having lived in a flat above a shop, it was quite useful to keep an eye out on what was going on. I had a friend who lived on the road opposite, and to see one of their children come down the road every morning on the way to school, turn around the corner and light up when thought mum couldn't see, and I did dob them in. Yeah, no. So it's a, yeah. So, colleagues, can we come to a conclusion? Can I? We've had interesting discussion. Can I see those in favour of the application with the condition of 14 maximum people, please? Those in favour. Those against, and those abstaining. Thank you. Planning permission is granted. Okay, our final application today is 74 Margate Road on page 81.
Quick one, Gerald. I'm going to have to disappear, Gerald. I'm going to have to disappear.
We'll wish you well, and we probably won't see you before Christmas, so have a good Christmas.
Thank you, Chairman. So we have an application at 74 Margate Road in St Thomas Ward. It's the intensification of occupation labelled as a change of use from Class C4 HMO for 6 persons to an HMO for 7 persons. So this has come to Planning Committee due to the blanket request of Councillor Vernon Jackson on this form of application. So here we are in Margate Road, just to the southeast of the city centre and the university, Terrace Street. Already an HMO, a mid-terrace property that's already been extended, so there are no further physical changes to the property proposed. With respect to the mixed and balanced community question, it is of course already an HMO, so the local proportion or percentage of properties would not change. It is 50%, that's 47 out of 94, so that would remain at 50%. Just take you through the various elevations, no change to floor plans and so on. The application proposes the previously shown lounge in the centre of the building. That would become the 7th bedroom. There we are, number 7. Otherwise, the property is as per existing. So with respect to the standard of accommodation that will be offered, all the bedrooms exceed the 10 square metres. They all have an ensuite. No, I'm sorry, there's slight differences in terms of the ensuites. Ground floor, 2 ensuites and a communal toilet under the stairs. 2 ensuites for bedrooms 4 and 3. Bedroom 5 would have to walk down the corridor to go to that communal shower room. And in the top floor, 2 bedrooms have the choice of that communal shower room as well. But nevertheless, over and above your standards with respect to sanitary provision. And then the combined living space in the ground floor at the rear is 23.2 square metres beyond the 22.5. So officers are satisfied that the standard accommodation will be acceptable. As per many of these applications, when there's a small increase in occupancy, in this instance, officers consider that there's not a material difference between the C4 and 7-person occupation, and so do not believe planning permission is necessary. Members will decide, first of all, if they agree with that. Should they disagree and consider it needs planning permission, go on to consider the merits, and if they wish to approve it, any conditions they may wish to attach. With respect to the supplementary matters, again, the MPPF has been updated last week. It does not refer explicitly to HMOs. This occupation concerns the intensification of occupation over residential land use, so the general thrust in support of housing would remain. Lastly, we have some amended plans just to clarify and correct the front elevation and the proposed bike store. Here are some images of the property: shared bathroom on the 2nd floor, bedroom 3 at the front, shared amenity space looking down towards the back garden. The global view is south facing, of course, and I think the bike store was shown on the original image, tucked away at the southern end of the garden. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Farr.
Thank you. This is another one that we've submitted in February. It's not proved to be particularly controversial, so we're not sure why it's taken this long, but it's a straightforward increase of 1 occupant. This is a long-standing HMO. This wasn't one of our 2-step applications. And we're not here to debate whether it requires planning permission. I don't think the answer's ever been no, so we're just here to respectfully ask for planning permission. And hopefully after 10 months we will get a decision today. The property has been upgraded and it complies with all the usual policies and standards to provide a good quality level of accommodation for future occupiers. So we respectfully ask that we can end the year with an approved scheme, and I believe this is the last time you'll need to listen to my voice this year, so I'd just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you very much indeed. We might be doing an additional meeting between Christmas and New Year. No, it's all right. We're not. No, I think you're right. Okay, colleagues, first thing we have to decide if we need planning permission or not. My view is that it does need planning permission because it's an enormously heavily densely populated area with over 50% of HMOs already, and we know that there's significant, and the research says that there's more problems that come from HMOs than other properties in terms of antisocial behaviour, litter, untidiness, and parking problems, and therefore it's clear that if you're going from 6-person to 7-person, then you do clearly need planning permission, because the planning permission, it says it's for 6 people, and therefore by definition, if you're 7, you're more than that. Can I see a seconder for that we need to do planning permission?
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Can I see those in favour of it needing planning permission, please show. I've just given a long list. Right, the usual list.
Chair, you actually added a new element to your list, which I was less happy with, but I was still willing to go along with it.
Okay, which was?
Normally, we object a negative amenity for the area due to concentration and the risk of exceptional problems in respect of parking, rubbish, sewage, and social behaviour.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, which I think is what I said.
Not quite, but we'll talk about it outside.
Okay. Okay, shall we do this vote again? Those in favour, please show. Okay, thank you very much. All right, colleagues, any questions to the officers? Councillor Atwell?
Mine's about light to bedroom 7.
Yep.
There's bedroom 7 facing, remember it's north-south, so that bedroom does face south, so alongside the rear wing and opens out into the yard. So being south-facing as well, it will catch more light and certainly direct sunlight in the middle of the day. That's the elevation. That is the bedroom there. It's a slightly wider rear yard there, perhaps, than some you see. And the rear wing 2 stories not too long. So I think it's a fairly standard and acceptable outlook and light for that particular bedroom.
Councillor Atwell?
My observation is that it's a smaller window rather than the bigger windows we've been hoping for. But we'll come back to that.
Okay. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Comments? Councillor Smythe?
The question is there bicycle storage?
Yes, I'll just show you again. Just tucked away in the southeast corner of the back garden there. Just
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? No? Comments? Councillor Atwell?
I mean, it's a small bedroom. I mean, it just scrapes through in terms of space standards. I'd like to see if not a full-length window, however we describe those bigger windows to allow more light into that room.
So in other places, they've put in full-length glass doors, a French window or whatever, or something like that, an access door. Carrie-Anne is nodding, and do you want to?
Happy to add that as a condition if you can add it as a condition. I know the client would rather his permission today and do that.
Okay. So I'm happy to move the officer that there is conditional permission granted with the usual conditions. In addition, that there should be a bigger window that to produce enough light for bedroom 7.
Chairman, rather than just say the usual conditions, shall I just
yeah, can you run them through?
Spell them?
Yeah, thank you.
So 3-year implementation period, the plans, the provision of the bike store, the water efficiency for concerning the special protection areas, the condition for bedroom 7 window to be larger, and a legal agreement to address SPA mitigation.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Candlish. Can I see those? Sorry, don't jump the gun, Gerald. Are there any other proposals? No. Can I see those in favour? Please show. Thank you. That is unanimous. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's meeting. Thank you very much indeed for your time and best wishes for Christmas and the new year.